You know what's strange? Some of the kindest people you'll ever meet are also the most frustrated. They give, they help, they bend over backward for others. And yet, they're the ones getting overlooked, underpaid, and left behind. Ever wonder why people keep passing you by while you're busy being nice? Let's talk about that. There's a difference between being kind and being a pushover. Kindness is a virtue, but when it turns into self-sacrifice without boundaries, it becomes a liability. I've met people who keep saying, "I don't know why no one appreciates me." And I tell them, maybe it's not that people don't appreciate you, it's that you've trained them not to. You've built a reputation for saying yes when you should say no. You've confused generosity with obligation, and now the world treats your kindness like a discount store. Always open, always available, always cheap. You see, life doesn't reward you for being nice. It rewards you for being valuable. And if your kindness doesn't come with strength, it becomes invisible. That's why so many good-hearted people end up frustrated, because they think kindness alone creates success. But kindness without boundaries doesn't build respect. It builds dependency. The moment you start valuing your time, your energy, and your worth, that's when people start valuing you too. So today, let's talk about why the world keeps passing by the nice ones, and how you can still be kind, but in a way that commands respect, not pity. Stay with me until the end, because the moment you understand this, you'll stop living like a background character in your own story and finally take center stage. The trap of endless niceness begins quietly, often disguised as goodness. You start by wanting to help, to please, to make things easier for others. You think that by being agreeable, you'll build stronger relationships, earn trust, and create harmony. And for a while, it works. People smile at you, thank you, tell you how kind you are. But underneath that surface of approval, something begins to erode. You start noticing that your opinions aren't asked for as much. Your time is taken for granted. Your energy feels drained, and somehow, even with all your giving, you feel unseen. That's because when you make everyone else comfortable at the expense of your own peace, you become invisible. The world doesn't reward invisible people. The world rewards those who show up with clarity and courage. You see, being too nice often isn't about kindness at all. It's about fear. Fear of what might happen if you stop being the easy one, the flexible one, the person who always says yes. You fear rejection, judgment, and the loss of approval. You tell yourself, "I don't want to upset anyone." But what you're really saying is, "I don't want to face the discomfort of standing my ground." So, you trade honesty for harmony, truth for comfort, boundaries for belonging. And each time you do, you lose a little more of your confidence. You lose the sharp edge of self, respect that keeps your identity strong. Most people never notice this trade off until it's too late. They wake up one day surrounded by people who depend on them but don't truly value them. Friends who only call when they need something. Coworkers who offload their responsibilities. Family members who assume your time is theirs to spend. And the saddest part is, you created that reality yourself. By teaching others that your kindness comes without limits, that your help is endless, and your no simply doesn't exist, the world learns how to treat you by the way you treat yourself. Now, I don't mean that being nice is wrong. Kindness is still one of the greatest forces in the world. But when it becomes your default mode of survival, when you use it as a mask to avoid conflict or discomfort, it starts to harm you instead of help you. Because nice people, without realizing it, become predictable. They're the ones who'll take on the extra shift, stay late to fix someone else's mistake, or keep forgiving behavior that should have been confronted long ago. And the more they do it, the more they condition the people around them to expect it. People stop asking, "Can you?" and start assuming, "You will." The truth is, the world doesn't respect endless niceness. It exploits it. It takes what's offered without question, not out of malice, but because that's how human nature works. When something is always available, it loses perceived value. That's why your effort, your time, and your kindness need boundaries. Without them, What you give stops being seen as generosity and starts being treated as obligation. People stop saying thank you because they think you owe it to them. And eventually, even you start believing that you owe it to them too. You might think, but being nice makes me a good person. Sure, but so does honesty. So does courage. So does standing up for yourself when it matters. Being nice is only one piece of the puzzle, not the entire picture. The person who only focuses on being nice often forgets that growth requires tension. You can't get stronger without resistance, and you can't build respect without confrontation. Sometimes, you have to risk being misunderstood to stay true to yourself. You have to let some people be disappointed so that you can finally stop disappointing yourself. Every time you say yes to something you don't want, you're saying no to something that matters. You're trading your priorities for someone else's comfort. You're allowing your schedule, your mood, and your peace to be dictated by the demands of others. It's not their fault, it's yours, because the people who respect themselves train the world to respect them too. They know that kindness is powerful, but not when it costs them their dignity. They know that love and limits are not enemies, they're partners. And the moment you understand that, everything changes. Think about this if you spend your life trying to please everyone, who's left to please you? You can't live your best life if it depends on constant approval. Approval is temporary, and it's often conditional. It lasts only as long as you keep giving people what they want. But respect, real respect, comes when people know you have boundaries. They might not always like you, but they'll trust you. They'll see that your kindness is a choice, not a weakness. They'll see that when you help, it's because you mean it, not because you're afraid to say no. There's something magnetic about a person who is kind but firm. You can feel it when they walk into a room. Their energy doesn't scream for attention, but it commands it. They don't say yes to everything, and that's what makes their yes valuable. People listen when they speak because they know this person doesn't waste words trying to please. They speak from conviction, not compliance. That's what being powerfully kind looks like. Now, I know what you might be thinking, but I don't want to hurt people's feelings. Understand this. Honesty delivered with respect is not cruelty, it's clarity. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is to stop enabling them, to tell them the truth they don't want to hear, to hold them accountable instead of rescuing them. When you're always protecting people from the consequences of their actions, you're not being kind. You're keeping them weak. True kindness empowers others to grow, even if it means they'll be uncomfortable for a while. And yes, being nice feels safe. It's predictable. You rarely get into arguments. People think highly of you, and you can go through life avoiding confrontation. But safety isn't the same as fulfillment. Comfort isn't the same as happiness. You can live your whole life avoiding friction and still end up frustrated, wondering why your potential never turned into results. It's because you can't lead, build, or grow from a place of constant agreement. Growth requires courage, the courage to stand firm, to be misunderstood, to disappoint others without losing yourself. When you stop being endlessly nice, something beautiful happens. You stop seeking permission to exist. You stop shrinking to fit into other people's expectations. You start to value your time and your voice. You realize that saying no doesn't make you mean. It makes you meaningful. You become selective with your kindness. And that's when your kindness starts to matter again, because it's no longer driven by fear. It's driven by strength. You begin to notice that the same people who used to take you for granted start treating you differently. Some might get upset at first. They'll accuse you of changing, and they're right. You did change. You stopped being the version of yourself that made everyone else comfortable, but left you drained. You started showing up as someone who values themselves. And that kind of shift doesn't just change how people treat you. It changes how you see yourself. Being endlessly nice is easy. It doesn't require much thought or courage. But being kind with strength, that's rare. That takes intention. It means you have to know what you stand for and what you will no longer tolerate. It means you choose to help when you truly can, not just when someone demands it. It means you stop apologizing for existing. And once you step into that version of yourself, life starts to rearrange around you. The takers fall away, and the respectful ones step closer. You attract what mirrors your standards. So don't confuse silence for peace, and don't mistake people pleasing for kindness. Niceness that costs yourself, respect is too expensive. The world doesn't need you to be endlessly nice. It needs you to be real, firm, and strong enough to care without losing yourself in the process. Because the truth is, people don't pass you by because you're not good enough. They pass you by because you never made them stop and see your worth. And once you start showing them that you won't need to chase respect, it will find you. Boundaries are one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. People often think of them as walls built to shut others out, when in reality, they are gates that help you decide what to let in and what to keep out. A person without boundaries is like a house without doors. Anyone can walk in, rearrange the furniture, and leave a mess behind. And after a while, you start wondering why you feel so drained, so unappreciated, so exhausted from carrying everyone else's burdens. It's because without boundaries, your energy is free for the taking, and people will take it, sometimes intentionally, but often simply because they can. You teach them that it's okay. You train them that your time is flexible, your priorities can wait, and your kindness has no limits. The nice person struggles the most with this idea because they associate boundaries with selfishness. They think, if I say no, I'm being unkind. If I stand my ground, I'm being difficult. But boundaries aren't about being cruel. They're about being clear. Clarity is kindness, both to yourself and to others. When people know where you stand, they can trust you more. When you're honest about what you can and cannot give, your relationships become healthier, not colder. Without boundaries, resentment grows where love was supposed to live. You start feeling unappreciated, and that feeling poisons everything good you try to build. Every yes that goes against your will is a quiet betrayal of yourself. You might think you're being helpful, but deep down, you're depleting your own resources. You spend your time doing favors you don't want to do, giving energy you don't have, and saying words you don't mean. You become agreeable at the cost of authenticity. And slowly, the frustration builds. You feel unheard, yet you never spoke up. You feel overworked, yet you never drew the line. You feel taken advantage of, yet you never said stop. People aren't mind readers. They learn from your actions what is acceptable, and if you never show them your limits, they will assume you don't have any. Boundaries aren't about keeping people away. They're about protecting your capacity to give meaningfully. Think of a battery. It doesn't power everything endlessly. It has to recharge. If you run it dry trying to power every device, eventually nothing works. The same goes for you. You can't give your best when you're running on empty. And the people who depend on you most, your family, your friends, your team, don't need a burnt-out version of you. They need a focused, grounded, energized version. Setting boundaries is how you make that possible. Learning to say no is one of the most liberating skills you can develop. Not a harsh, dismissive no, but a calm, confident no that says, I respect myself enough to choose where my time and effort go. You don't need to justify it or explain it endlessly. You're allowed to protect your schedule, your peace, and your priorities. Saying no doesn't make you heartless. It makes you honest, because every time you say yes to something that doesn't serve your goals or your well-being, you're silently saying no to something that could have moved your life forward. People who succeed in life don't say yes more often than others. They say yes with more intention. They don't commit to every opportunity that comes their way. They evaluate it. They ask, does this align with my goals? Does this drain me or grow me? And if it doesn't serve their direction, they decline without guilt. That's not arrogance, that's discipline. That's knowing the difference between being busy and being productive, between being liked and being respected. Without boundaries, you end up spreading yourself so thin that even your kindness loses its impact. You start giving out of obligation instead of joy. You start showing up physically, but checking out emotionally. And when that happens, people sense it. Your words may still sound polite, but your energy says resentment. Boundaries keep your giving pure. They allow you to offer your time and attention fully because you've chosen to, not because you've been cornered into it. Sometimes, the hardest boundaries to set are not with others, but with yourself. You have to stop saying yes to distractions that disguise themselves as opportunities. You have to stop rescuing people from lessons they need to learn. You have to stop overcommitting because you're afraid of missing out or letting someone down. The truth is, you will let people down. You can't meet everyone's expectations and still have a life that feels like your own. The key is to learn which expectations matter and which don't. Strong boundaries don't push people away. They attract the right ones closer. The people who truly value you won't be offended when you say no. They'll respect it. They'll know that when you do show up, it's because you want to, not because you feel forced. Boundaries create trust because they show consistency. They tell the world, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. This is how I operate. And in a world full of people trying to please everyone, that kind of clarity stands out. It's not always easy to draw the line, especially if you've spent years being the reliable one, the go-to person, the problem solver. The first time you say no, people might be surprised. The second time, they might test you. But keep at it. Each time you stand your ground, you retrain not only others, but also yourself. You start realizing that the world doesn't collapse when you prioritize your own peace. You start noticing that people still respect you, and those who don't were only there for what you could give, not who you are. The guilt of saying no fades with practice. The peace that follows it grows with time. Because boundaries don't isolate you, they free you. They free you from overextending, from resentment, from living your life for the convenience of others. They make your relationships real, because now people are connecting with your truth, not your compliance. When you say yes now, it comes from a place of strength, not fear. Think of boundaries like a fence around a beautiful garden. The fence doesn't keep you from growing flowers. It protects them. It ensures that only those who respect the space get to enjoy it. Without the fence, anyone can walk through, trample the soil, and destroy what you've been cultivating. Your time, your peace, your energy, they're that garden. Protect them. Because if you don't, someone else will use them for their own benefit, and you'll be left with nothing but frustration. The nice person who learns boundaries becomes unstoppable. They still care deeply, but they no longer carry everything. They still give, but not at the cost of their own well-being. They still say yes, but only when it aligns with their purpose. They're no longer afraid of being misunderstood because they know that peace is worth more than popularity. They've learned that boundaries don't shrink your world. They refine it. They help you focus on the people and pursuits that actually matter, rather than scattering yourself across everything that doesn't. When you start living this way, something inside shifts. You stop apologizing for protecting your energy. You stop needing to explain why your time is valuable. You stop feeling guilty for not being everywhere, doing everything for everyone, because you finally realize that you were never supposed to. Your job is not to make everyone else comfortable. It's to live a life that reflects clarity, respect, and balance. Boundaries transform kindness into power. They turn passive niceness into active strength. They remind you that you are not responsible for everyone's happiness. You are responsible for your own integrity. And when you live with integrity, you become far more effective, far more respected, and far more fulfilled. The world doesn't need you to be endlessly available. It needs you to be fully present in the moments that matter most. And that presence only happens when you stop giving your time away to everything that doesn't deserve it. Kindness is one of the most powerful tools a person can possess, but it only becomes truly powerful when it is backed by strength. Kindness without strength is like a candle in the wind. Its light flickers at the mercy of every breeze. But kindness rooted in self, respect burns steady and bright. It doesn't beg to be noticed. It commands it. Most people misunderstand this balance. They think that being kind means always being available, always agreeable, always giving. But that's not strength. That's submission disguised as goodness. The kind of kindness that changes lives doesn't come from fear of disapproval. It comes from confidence in one's own values. When you try to be kind without having boundaries or backbone, you end up being drained, not respected. People might call you nice, but they don't see you as someone to be followed, admired, or trusted with big things. Because deep down, they sense that your kindness is conditional. It's given to gain peace, not to express power. Strong kindness doesn't come from a desire to be liked. It comes from the decision to do what's right even if it's not easy. It knows when to comfort and when to confront, when to give and when to guard, when to be soft and when to stand firm. Turning kindness into strength begins with shifting your motive. If your kindness is a currency you use to buy acceptance, you'll always feel broke. But if your kindness is an expression of your principles, you'll never run out. Strong kindness isn't a performance, it's a posture. It's the quiet confidence that says, I know who I am, I know what I value, and I'll treat you well, but I won't let you walk over me. That kind of person changes rooms without raising their voice. They don't demand respect, they earn it by the consistency of their character. Most people who feel stuck in life aren't lacking talent or opportunity. They're lacking boundaries around their kindness. They keep giving to those who take and listening to those who drain them. They confuse loyalty with sacrifice, but loyalty without discernment is self-destruction. You can't keep watering relationships that only grow weeds. Strength means knowing when to stop. It means recognizing that walking away doesn't make you cruel. It makes you wise. You don't need to harden your heart to protect it, you just need to strengthen it. When you start turning kindness into strength, you begin to choose your giving intentionally. You stop pouring into every cup and start asking if the cup has holes. You realize that your kindness should build others without breaking you. You start helping people who also help themselves, not those who only want your energy, but refuse to take responsibility for their own lives. You stop apologizing for not fixing everything and start focusing on what you can truly influence. That's not arrogance. That's maturity. There's a difference between weak kindness and strong kindness. Weak kindness says yes to avoid guilt. Strong kindness says no to preserve value. Weak kindness fears disapproval. Strong kindness knows that respect often comes after discomfort. Weak kindness gives endlessly hoping to be appreciated. Strong kindness gives wisely knowing that appreciation is a bonus, not a requirement. Weak kindness makes you invisible. Strong kindness makes you unforgettable. The goal is not to be less kind, but to be a kind person who refuses to trade truth for comfort or dignity for approval. The transformation begins internally. You start to notice the moments where you've been silent when you should have spoken, the times you've accepted less than you deserved, the situations where you've allowed others to take more than you could afford to give. And instead of blaming them, you start taking responsibility. Because strength isn't about controlling others, it's about mastering yourself. It's about realizing that you can be compassionate without being compliant. You can be generous without being exhausted. You can be empathetic without being used. Once you make that shift, everything around you begins to realign. People who only valued your compliance start drifting away, while those who value your authenticity start moving closer. You begin to feel lighter, freer, more focused. The weight of constant people pleasing falls off your shoulders. You no longer seek validation from the outside because you've built it on the inside. The irony is, when you stop trying so hard to be liked, people end up respecting you more. They know that your kindness means something now because it comes from strength, not from a need for acceptance. True kindness is not about pleasing everyone. It's about being the kind of person who can help others grow. Sometimes that means saying things that others don't want to hear. Sometimes that means stepping back so they can face the consequences of their choices. Sometimes that means holding a line even when others call you unkind for it. But real kindness looks at the long term, not the moment. It asks, what will help this person become stronger? Not just, what will make them feel better right now? You can't inspire growth in others if you're afraid to stand tall yourself. The people who create impact in the world are those who love deeply but stand firmly. They know that pity doesn't help people rise. Truth does. They can comfort someone in pain, but they can also challenge them to change. That's strong kindness. It's the balance of heart and backbone, of empathy and expectation. It's what makes a leader out of a helper. The moment you start living with strong kindness, your world changes because your energy changes. You no longer give from emptiness. You no longer seek to prove your worth through endless giving. You become more intentional with your time, more selective with your presence, more deliberate with your words. You begin to attract people who match your values instead of those who exploit your softness. And when people experience your kindness, they don't just feel comforted, they feel empowered. Strong kindness also teaches you that not everyone deserves access to you. Your time, your attention, and your peace are privileges, not entitlements. You can still wish someone well from a distance. You can still love without losing yourself. You can still care deeply and protect fiercely at the same time. That's the art of balanced living, loving without losing, giving without being empty, helping without being used. You start to realize that strength and softness aren't opposites. They're partners. Real power doesn't need to shout. It's quiet, controlled, intentional. The strongest people are often the kindest because they're not threatened by anyone's success. They're not insecure about giving credit. They're not competing. They're contributing. But they also know when to withdraw, when to rest, when to protect their peace. That balance makes their kindness magnetic, not exhausting. When you operate from this place, your kindness begins to carry authority. People listen when you speak because they know your words aren't empty. They feel your sincerity, but they also sense your firmness. You become a source of stability in a world full of people who bend too easily. You no longer get swayed by guilt or manipulation. You give freely, but only where it's meaningful. You forgive, but you don't forget the lesson. You stay open-hearted, but not open to abuse. That's the kind of kindness that transforms both you and the people around you. It's not about becoming harder. It's about becoming wiser. The world doesn't need more nice people. It needs more strong, kind people. The kind of people who can be gentle with others while being firm with their principles. The kind of people who can inspire without enabling. The kind of people who can say, I care about you, but I also care about myself. When you live that way, your presence starts teaching others how to treat you. They no longer assume your kindness is weakness. They see it as wisdom, maturity, and power. Because the truth is, real kindness isn't just about what you give. It's about what you refuse to lose in the process. It's about standing so firmly in your values that you can extend compassion without compromising your dignity. It's about understanding that being kind doesn't mean you have to carry everyone. It means you lead by example. It means you inspire others not by how much you tolerate, but by how clearly you live your truth. It means that every act of kindness you give now carries strength behind it, and that strength makes it last.